3,400 years ago, an Egyptian woman had no pharmacy, no laboratory, and no plastic pregnancy test. But she had something else: a handful of barley, a handful of wheat, and a question that could change her entire life. Am I pregnant? Each morning, she would urinate onto the seeds and wait. If they sprouted, it could mean a new life was already growing inside her. It sounds primitive, almost ridiculous. But here is the strange part. Modern science suggests that this ancient test was not completely wrong. So how could people living thousands of years ago stumble upon a biological signal that medicine would only fully understand much later? And what else did Egyptian healers know about pregnancy, fertility, and childbirth? To understand why the ancient test worked at all, we have to look beyond the ritual and into biochemistry. Pregnancy changes the chemistry of the female body. Ancient Egyptians obviously did not know about hormones, receptors, or molecular signaling, but they could observe one simple fact. Something in the urine of a pregnant woman seemed to affect seeds differently. Modern research has shown that urine from pregnant women can influence seed germination, although the ancient test was far from perfectly reliable. The Egyptians did not know the mechanism. They did not need to. They observed a pattern, repeated it, and turned that pattern into a practical test. That is the fascinating part. This was not modern medicine disguised as ancient wisdom. It was something more primitive and, in its own way, more impressive. An early biological experiment built from observation. And the Egyptians were not finished experimenting with the human body. Some medical texts also describe strange methods for investigating fertility and the reproductive system. One involved placing garlic or onion in the vagina overnight and observing whether its smell could later be detected in the woman's breath. Today, the underlying anatomical explanation they imagined is known to be incorrect, but the attempt itself reveals something important. They were trying to test an invisible process by creating a visible, or rather, detectable, result. Thousands of years before modern diagnostic medicine, they were already asking the same fundamental question. How can we make the hidden workings of the human body reveal themselves? But the Egyptians were not only trying to discover when pregnancy had already begun, they were also trying to prevent it. Ancient Egyptian medical papyri contains several recipes intended to prevent conception, revealing that reproductive health was treated as a practical medical concern rather than simply a moral question. One particularly fascinating ingredient was acacia. Acacia gum could be combined with other substances and introduced into the vagina as part of a contraceptive preparation. The Egyptians obviously had no concept of sperm cells or vaginal, yet some ingredients in these mixtures had properties that modern chemistry finds genuinely interesting. Acacia-based preparations can ferment and produce lactic acid, and an acidic environment can reduce sperm motility and survival. That does not mean ancient Egyptians had invented a modern spermicide. Their preparations were inconsistent, and their effectiveness would have varied enormously. But the chemistry raises an intriguing possibility. Through repeated observation, people could discover that certain natural mixtures seem to affect fertility, even without understanding the microscopic biology behind them. And then there is the famous story about crocodile dung. You may have heard that Egyptian women supposedly used crocodile feces as a contraceptive pessary. The reality is much less certain. Some ancient medical recipes do mention animal dung, but translating these prescriptions is complicated, and modern retellings often turn ambiguous ancient instructions into sensational claims. The bigger story is actually more interesting. Ancient Egyptian medicine was not simply a collection of bizarre remedies. It was a mixture of observation, experimentation, tradition, and belief, an early attempt to control one of the most unpredictable forces in human life: reproduction. And then we reach the moment every ancient Egyptian mother had been waiting for: childbirth. Imagine entering a birth room thousands of years ago. There is no modern hospital bed, no electronic monitor, no epidural. Instead, the mother may squat or kneel, supported by birth bricks while attendants surround her. This was not simply a symbolic ritual. An ancient Egyptian birth brick discovered at Abydos provides rare archaeological evidence of how such a scene may have looked. Dating to the New Kingdom, the brick is decorated with images associated with childbirth and divine protection. But its most fascinating feature is the surface itself. The upper section shows heavy wear, while the decorated sides remain comparatively well preserved. Could that wear have been caused by generations of women standing or squatting on the brick during labor? It is a compelling interpretation, but archaeologists must be careful. Wear alone cannot prove exactly how every woman used the object. What we do know is that childbirth was dangerous. Hemorrhage, infection, obstructed labor, and other complications could turn a normal delivery into a life-threatening emergency within minutes. And this is where Egyptian medicine reveals another side of itself. When physical medicine reached its limits, the birth room became a psychological fortress. Images of Taweret, the protective hippopotamus goddess, and Bes, the fierce dwarf deity, surrounded the mother. The message was simple: you are not alone. But why surround a woman in labor with frightening gods and protective symbols? To modernize, it can look like superstition. To an ancient Egyptian mother, it may have meant something very different. Childbirth was unpredictable, painful, and dangerous. Egyptian healers could offer practical remedies, but they had no way to stop every hemorrhage, correct every obstructed birth, or understand the microscopic causes of infection. So they also fought the invisible threats they believed surrounded childbirth. Taweret, with the body of a pregnant hippopotamus, became a powerful guardian of mothers and children. Bes, with his exaggerated face and fierce expression, was associated with protection, music, childbirth, and the destruction of dangerous forces. These images were not medical instruments in the modern sense, but they may have served a psychological purpose. Fear can intensify suffering. Ritual can create structure when everything feels uncontrollable, and the presence of protective symbols could reassure a woman that powerful forces were watching over her. This is where ancient Egyptian medicine becomes surprisingly human. They could not eliminate every danger, so they created an environment designed to make the mother feel protected. And then, at the moment the baby finally emerged, another ancient technology entered the story, one that connected childbirth to a much larger Egyptian idea: the mysterious boundary between life, death, and rebirth. Then came the first cry. For the Egyptians, that sound meant more than a baby had arrived. It meant life had begun. A specialized flint tool called the peseshkef may have been used in childbirth, particularly for cutting the umbilical cord. Its sharp edge reflects remarkable prehistoric craftsmanship. But the story becomes stranger. Similar tools were later connected with the Egyptian opening of the mouth ritual, performed on the dead to symbolically restore their senses. The same idea appears again and again. Birth, death, and rebirth were not separate worlds. They were part of one cycle. And perhaps that is the deepest lesson of Egyptian medicine. When chemistry could help, they used it. When observation revealed a pattern, they recorded it. And when medicine reached its limits, they turned to ritual, symbolism, and hope. Then came the baby's first cry. Thousands of years before the modern APGAR score, Egyptian healers were already paying close attention to whether a newborn cried and breathed. They could not measure oxygen saturation or heart rate, but they could observe the most important signal they had. Was the child alive? In the end, Egyptian childbirth was neither pure science nor pure magic. It was humanity using every tool available: observation, chemistry, ritual, and hope to protect new life.